Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to GEEXX Reads. Didn't have the book. Today I want to talk about Explorer by C.J. Cherryh, an image which you will see here. This is the third book in the second trilogy of the Foreigner series. This book takes place a bit of time. I don't know exactly how much time since after the last book. In the events of the previous book, on Captain Ramirez's deathbed, he appoints Jace as his successor and confesses that when they abandon Reunion Station, there have been survivors behind. When the crew of the ship Starship Phoenix finds this out, they mutiny and demand a rescue mission, which the surviving captains agree to. Jace and co-captain Sabine are sent on the ship. Captain Ogun stays behind, yada, yada, yada. Tabini appoints Brent Cameron as a Lord of the Heavens, an equal Lord of the Ativa government, and also sends his grandmother, the IG Dowager Ilisidi, and his heir and son, Kajiri, his 7-year-old son, to go with them. And there are difficulties with the ship in transit. Ilisidi demands a certain amount of authority over her own sphere of influence, and her and Sabine do not get along very well, even though Sabine is a senior captain. That's all from the previous book. As this book starts out, they are getting close to Reunion Station. Jace has managed to uncover a recording that was taken from a helmet camera of the crew that boarded Reunion Station to get fuel for them to flee and come back to the other human station, what they thought was the human station at Alpha at the Ativa homeworld. And he shows it to Bren. In it, they can see that the station is clearly rotating, which means there's gravity, which means there's survivors. Sabine, basically falsified an image that they sent to the crew. It did show some damage, but he also hid this record. Sabine had it and refused to give it to Jace. Jace assumed that it's a test of his skill, since he was basically just trained as a translator and not really trained in the ship's functions. So, as usual in these political thriller alien books, there's a lot going on that there's a lot of hidden stuff going on. It's a political thriller. Stupid plane. So, damn it. I should have shut the window. It's gotten warm in here. I'm going to keep talking. I've already got it going. So they're going into Union Station, not quite sure what they'll find. It's been over 10 years because, it takes approximately a year for the ship to transit from Union Station back to the Ativa homeworld. It took them almost 10 years to, get the station up and running, get to the point where they could shuttle supplies back and forth from the planet to where they can get fuel for, the return trip. Although they weren't told there was a return trip, remember. Ostensibly they were just here to basically defend against whatever hostile alien species had attacked Reunion Station, to build up their defenses, get another ship up and running, get the shuttles up and running, and resupply and get everything going. It wasn't until Ramirez was on his deathbed that he confessed there were survivors. So, it's been a decade, and going in, they don't know if the station has survived that long. So, in Captain Sabine's opinion, why would they have survived a decade? Why tell the crew the truth? Jace very much wants to tell them the truth because he figures if they find out the truth at the wrong moment, it could cause another mutiny. So this is pretty much how the book starts off, with them just before going into the Reunion Station and finding out what is actually there. And obviously, with a book that's over 400 pages long, um, things do progress. You know, we find out that that Ramirez knew there was an alien species out there before there was ever an attack on the station. He was preparing to deal with them when something went wrong and they attacked the station. So, but all this stuff going on, and of course you have Bren, who's the main character. That's just the start of the novel. You know, the story obviously goes into what happens when they get to the station, what happens with the survivors, what happens with the potential other alien species that attack the station, and how this all comes together and resolves from, you know, the Ativa and Bren's point of view. Like all of these novels, and most of this seems to be mostly C.J. Cherryh's style, is that this is all a forced first-person perspective, in that we never see anything outside of what the main character, Brent Cameron, sees. Everything is from his perspective. There is no side tracks to another chapter where we learn some shadowy motives that are going on. We only know what Brent Cameron knows, which I think is one of the reasons I really like these books. I also like them because I really enjoy the characters. You know, I enjoy the characters that Brent interacts with, at least as much as I enjoy him as an individual. And it is surprising because these books, number 6 in the series, are fairly slow for the most part. There is not a lot of action. This is all dialogue and politics, and you know, culture shock, and which I believe I've mentioned when I reviewed the first book in the series. So I think this is a good end to the second trilogy. I really like all the political machinations between Bren, Illicidi, Jace, Captain Sabine, you know, and all the other characters. I enjoy him. You know, there are some humans from, you know, from the Ativa homeworld, from the island, from Mosferia. I like them too. They're just such an interesting bunch of characters that I really love these books, and that's what keeps me coming back to them. You might notice this book is much shinier and neater than the other books in my collection from this series, because being, you know, obviously I have had the other books longer and have reread them more often. I think I've only reread this book 2 or 3 times, as opposed to the first trilogy. I've read each book in a trilogy half a dozen times a piece, if not more. So I highly enjoy and recommend this third book in the second trilogy, sixth book in this series overall. I cannot recommend the Foreigner series highly enough. It is one of the few books I will recommend to non-science fiction and fantasy readers, because it is all political thriller, or mostly political thriller. Also some, like, you know, it's a study of human nature, and, you know, because the main character is a, you know, translator and has to try and work in a human alien interface kind of thing. So it's a bit of a study in anthropology, I guess you could say. So, and because of that, like I said, I can recommend this to people who aren't really interested in sci-fi, because it's more, you know, they're a political thriller in a sci-fi setting. It's more about, you know, the culture confusion, culture shock, and political thriller than it is about the alien stuff, although there is some of the alien stuff too. So again, this is my crappy interview. As always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.